Okay, so the next is routing in Angular. Routing in Angular allows the user to create a single page application with multiple views and allows navigation between them. Okay, so we'll see the routing step by step. Uh, like as we see here, uh, we'll first define these routes as an array, and we'll inject this uh, router module to our ng module, and we are importing these routes using this syntax router module dot for route, and we are passing these defined routes over here. So how to define the routes in the routes array? As we see here, uh, we have declared one array, and we have the objects of type the routes. This route will take path and the component majorly. There are other properties also, but these are the basic properties to create define one route in Angular. So here we have defined two paths. First is for first component, and the name is a first dash component, and the second is a second dash component, which will render this second component. Then suppose we have some 404, or we want to redirect the page if the entered route is not exist in our application. We can show this page not found component for this 404 route, as we see here. And this route should be at the end of this routes array, like here. After all the routes configuration, then we should add this wildcard route. Okay, so the next is how to use path parameters in routes. As we see here, we have defined one user's route, and we are expecting the id in this url. So when the user enter user slash some id, we will render this user component. Then how to set redirecting? As we see here, we'll set the path. So we are expecting that when the path is empty, means suppose the empty after the domain name, we'll just redirect to this url, like slash first component. And as we see here, we have already defined path for this first component here. So in this case, if you just enter the domain name in url, so this will redirect us to the first component, and the strategy for path matching is full. Okay, then the next is how to set the nested route. uh, if we want to set the nested routes for this first component, like first component slash something one slash something two, we'll use this children property, and this children property will take an array of routes same as these routes. As we see here, we have added this children property. Then as we see here, we have one router outlet uh, component. So this will work like uh, we will add this router outlet in our page where we want to render the different components if the url change. Like if we enter the first component in this part, angular will automatically render the first component. If we redirect to the second component, automatically angular automatically renders the second component in this router outlet. Then we will see how to add the navigation links in our pages from view. Like this, we have added this one link over here, and we have added two directives, router link and router link active. So the router link will work for the URL. So when we click on this link element, the browser automatically navigates user to the first component, and this will work for if the current view is of the first component. This uh, element will have this active class. This will done by Angular automatically. Okay, so the next is how to add the router outlets for a nested view. In our case, we will add router outlet in first components view, so the children of first component will render there. Then we'll see how to navigate from the component using router service. To navigate from component, we'll inject this router service to our component, and we'll use the navigate method of our router service, and we'll pass an array, and in the array first element of that array will be the URL, and the next element can, and the second or third argument will be the query parameters or path parameters as and when required for this URL. Then how to access the route information using Activator route service in our component. So for accessing query parameters, we'll inject the activated route service in our component. As we see here, we are accessing the query parameters. So for that, we'll access the query params property of activated route, and this query params is actually observable, and we are going to subscribe this, and we will access then this params dot name or any other queries from the URL. Then the last is the accessing path parameters. Suppose as we see here, we have added this path parameter over here while defining our routes. So in that case, in same way, we'll inject the activated route service in our component, and we'll access the param map, so observable of the activated route, and we'll subscribe it, and it will give us as a map, and we'll access the map.get, that expected property. So for accessing query parameters, we'll access the query params, and for the path parameters, we'll access the param map, and both are the observables, and we'll subscribe to both of them as and when needed.